A pictorial manuscript, its pages covered in paintings. But what if I told you you're reading written words? This script from Mexico defies our concept of what a writing system should be. So how does it work? Whose words are they? How do you read them? Why did it remain relevant even after colonization? Here's a story about how pictography tells stories. Today, meet a script unlike other scripts I've studied, and I worked through this Aztec handbook. If I'm to hand you the loose end of the thread I've been pulling to understand the tale of these iconic texts, I have to ask a seemingly unrelated question. What do you think of strawberries? In strawberry fields of California, workers speak a language you might never have heard before, or even heard of. In fact, they, more than other agricultural workers, are likely to have this language barrier, not speaking Spanish. To overcome obstacles, look at these glyphs. A community group organizes events and helpful radio messages under the banner of imagery that ties back to pages painted by their ancestors in their home landscape. Mountains, valleys, coasts where people speak rich language varieties, given the umbrella label Mixtec. A map of their lands in what's now southern Mexico caught the eye of archaeologist Alfonso Caso in the 1940s. This old colonial map depicts part of La Mixteca at the turn of the year 1576. In an eye-catching mix of indigenous and European styles, iconic glyphs dot and crisscross and surround the map, centered on a town of Chiocatnu, and then grow out and drape down one side. The people seated facing each other, these figures look familiar. In fact, they appear in a whole group of pictorial manuscripts dating to the post-classic, around 900 to 1500. They're called pictorials because, look at them, scene after scene alive with characters, places, symbols. Caso wonders, could that map be a sort of Rosetta Stone, a key to unlocking the names in this much earlier collection? He's onto something. Glyphs follow a pattern of naming people with two names. First, numbers of discs next to day signs are dates. Newborns would get a calendar name to connect them through time to their birth date. There's another sign for their given name, like spiderweb of rain. The two names are called Dzaui and Dzaui. Dzaui, Dzaui. We can already hear how from here on out, language skills become critical, specifically the skills from those farm fields. So a word about the language. I don't speak it. I've been relying on the guidance of Gabina Perez Jimenez, who writes about her modern variety and the old post-classic language. One fact for starters, hers is a tonal language in a family of tonal languages. Like names throughout Mexico, Mixtec comes from Aztec, Nahuatl, so Mixteca, basically cloud people. Now, Aztec is definitely not Mixtec, though they will cross paths in this story. Mixteca to Mixteca, even Mixteca. Mixtecos themselves in their diverse dialects combine two words, people or community, and rain or rain god, with bountiful ways of saying rain. Ñuu Dzaui, or Sabi, the rain nation. Language at hand and in mind, you can now identify individual Iyadzi and Iya, the ladies and lords, the Ñuu, the towns they ruled, and follow them across the pages. The basic glyphs in their names stand not for a sound or syllable, but a whole word. Welcome back, logograms, to my channel. Some examples. A flower is a common element in names, and it represents ita, the word for flower, or tonally ita in another variety. Likewise, a mountain is juku, found at the start of some important place names. The motif shown off here is Ñuu, the word we just learned for people or town or commune. Will return to its weighty historical significance. Logograms put together are read together. Simplest case to me is one word beside another. So Lady 10 flower that's her calendar name, has a given name with 2 words, spiderweb of the rain. And she's seated on a town sign, Ñuu, with flints atop, Ñuu Dzaui, town of flints. Glyphs can join, conflate. The rain god from another angle, Dzaui again, wears the town motif we learned for Ñuu Dzaui, people of the rain. This is year, kuya, famous among the in crowd as the AO sign. Okay, fair term for it. But then one of 4 year signs gets tied up in it. The year 6 flint, the year 13 reed. Even choice of pigment can be meaningful, very much like I showed in Nahuatl writing in a bonus video for patrons. The left column of that map contains a place name with the Ñuu motif, but it's painted black for the color word. Sure enough, there's a corresponding town known today as Ñuu Tun. Not every reading is so literal. It's a funny word given this script. Earlier we acknowledged the language is tonal. How tonal? Try earth, Ñuu, fire, Ñuu, deity, Ñuu, 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 Ñuu. Scribes indulge in this and play with tonal puns. Here are 2 hometowns. Chiocatnu, big altar. Hey, that's the one from the map. Gatnu means big. The Aztec route would have been to enlarge the glyph, but here a human bends and breaks a piece of the town sign. Bend, break, Gatnu is a pun for big, Gatnu. Next place has eyes, Nu, and crossed bars, crossed being Ndihin. But tonal punning flips Ndihin to Ndihin. It's Ndihin Nu, good view. The script also abounds in idioms, sayings known in Spanish as difracismos, 2 phrase-isms, and kindred in heart to any lover of a good kenning. Writers blend these parallelisms like puzzles into the scene. The mat and throne, yuviteyu, together beneath married rulers, mean rulership. Protagonists throwing darts into a place name? Nduaia, arrows of the lords, conquest. One more. Tuunya, the word, the song, is flowery poetry for lineage history. And if it's starting to sound like the same old story of rulers and ruled, well, hold your assumptions. We will cycle back when we ponder the word Ñuu. This degree of puzzling out and give and take is expected from Old Mexico, but in one way Mixtec writing stands out. Not a single phonetic sign in sight. Even the Aztec Empire script writes phonetic syllables. This, though, from the way writing systems experts define writing, is pure logography, word writing. Beyond individual signs, words also carry memories of composition. Scribes are those who write and paint the words and songs, meaning document the history. Red lines, juku, juku, follow the furrow to guide our eyes around the screenfold pages. Now you could follow centuries of dates, names, puns, and parallelisms around the pages in a yuk-yuk pattern. Or you could try to follow, because these disparate deciphered pieces don't connect into a unified linguistic text. Could the entire page ever be read? Or is the rest just pictures up for interpretation? Well, elsewhere, across the same decades, people made progress in pictorials. Writing systems experts were defining writing. Theirs are the definitions I'd meet as I sat gangly legs folded awkwardly on my bag, tucked between quiet bookshelves, and later again in university, and later when reading up for animations I'm still attached to on this channel. Crucial to our story, their definitions drew a line, and Mexico's scripts fell on the other side. They're pictography, proto-writing, forerunners to more advanced writing systems. True writing is more phonetic and can fully represent language once the writer's gone. What is real writing? Well, not this. Or this. Eventually they'd concede, yeah, this, but only when it's being super logophonetic, not the iconographic stuff. As someone studying Mesoamerican script slowly in digital ink and colored pencil, for years this left me torn between textbook definitions and my morning glyph practice. I was stuck in the feeling I'm trying to share when we stare together at this page. Maybe the highlighted bits are words, while all else is imagery, or something in between? Longing to square definitions of writing with the mere existence of Mexican manuscripts, that's when I encounter this paper. It's what got me wanting to animate this in the first place. It in turn led me to this much longer guidebook, the source of most examples in this video. The article tells us we limited ourselves to deciphering narrow bottom-up units. But something big is happening on top of it all, like top-down. What we missed is that here are schemas, blueprints that we need to fill in and interpret. And here's kind of how. Time and again, two people sit facing each other on a mat. We interpret the schema as the action marry. We decipher the date and the names of the participants, bottom up. But there's more here. The mat, the throne, and the place name. So the lord and lady were married and rule a place named the town of Flints. The interwoven presence of these two levels, logographic data and schematic containers, at the discretion of the original scribe, tells us we're in the presence of writing and not solely continuous narrative art. Am I the only one at this point whose mind drifts to adventure games, like filling in sentence blueprints with words, puns, and puzzles? It feels familiar. Interpretation here doesn't mean it's up to you, anything goes. But how do we know? Prove it. Prove your reading with exact pictorial and alphabetic parallels. Two more named people sit in marriage, so 6 death married 2 flower. Then the link to this place name means she's from Ñuu. This text also records that event, but in the alphabet. 6 death rain sun married 2 flower jewel quetzal who came from Ñuu. It's the same sentence, side by side, in 2 scripts. In short, readings are rooted in indigenous usage, colonial texts and living voices, and books must be both deciphered and interpreted in order to be properly read. Such a perspective shift demands a new definition, so gather your old ones, cross out proto versus true, and bring back the people. Writing is simply markings which represent language. Now, I don't know if I endorse this. I just can't get it out of my head. Some detractors who know Central Mexico's scripts quite well don't think we need to call pictorials writing to say why they matter. They could actually represent an advancement over phonetic scripts, not a step backwards. Advancement? Yes, partly because Mixtec manuscripts do something multilingually clever we'll meet soon, and partly because of what we learn from the errors that these contain. Anomalies provide evidence of how the writing to interpretation cycle worked and who played what roles at each stage. Some mistakes are just typos. This painter missed a disc, writing 12 serpent when it's 13. Okay. Or this yuk starts up top with Lady 6 Flower, however her calendar name is really 6 Reed, as in this codex, not 6 Flower. Other mistakes are more than an oops. This manuscript has 2 sides. The guidebook I've been using notes the front is polished and flawless, but the back is sloppy, full of the kinds of mistakes a painter would make who knew neither the local history nor the local style, but copied another manuscript. Alongside evidence of copying, pictorials depict singing and orchestras playing, and alphabetics record terms for lineage songs. It sets the stage for a whole interpretive cycle that blurs distinctions between written and oral societies. Instead of my writing bee, where writers write marks read by readers, here's a Ñuu Dzaui model. Wordsmiths or singers use flowery speech that's painted in a pictorial source. Scribes copy that source without necessarily knowing the story or the lyrics. Trained interpreters perform as bards, reading or singing the words aloud amidst an audience. And why does it matter that people were reading and writing history this way? Well, consider an intriguing advantage of their script. Writing definers routinely highlight pictography's disadvantages. That's how I first heard about it, all its problems. Yet in one respect, this script shines. At the outset, I animated a page unfurling and trusted we shared a gut instinct. This doesn't look like writing. Over there, walls of text, sure, can't tell what's going on unless you know the scripts. Meanwhile, here, you had a shot at guessing it's about two people, maybe even two people getting married, even before watching. Incidentally, those walls of text, also about marriages. Well, how to leverage this legibility at a glance in a setting as multilingual as Oaxaca? Scribes figured out how to write multilingual texts, readable in more than one language at once. Take the rain god glyph. It could unify the wide variety of local words that the alphabet splits into different-looking spellings. But there's more to it. A familiar glyph adorns an old page. The AO you've come to know and love for Kuya, the year. But a leaf grows out of it, suggesting Xiwit, year in Nahuatl. Then the date can be read in both languages. Let's take a moment to appreciate the two strategies going on here. One glyph per reading versus many readings per glyph. They diverge on their words for year and converge on the date. The alphabetic text confirms it's bilingually Aztec and Mixtec. This unique manuscript is a book of accounts of one Ñuu, one town in the decades after the Spanish conquest of La Mixteca. Meaning there's a missed opportunity here. Add Enye to the AO glyph, and it could have been trilingual. More seriously, though, it records the start of a change in the meaning of pictography to the Ñuu. Ñuu means people, community, town, city-state, or better, village-state. The pictorials we've met so far tell of how Ñuu rise amidst a crisis at the close of the Classic period in a misty foundation honored via the sacred bundle. Throughout the post-Classic, Ñuu form elaborate ties through relationships and conflict. Rather than control land and resources, though, the mat, the throne, rulers, cultivate ties and reach out for items needed to maintain those ties. Power over feathers, not over feed. How does one keep such ties for so long? Document them in pictorial books. Periodically publicly perform pictorial books. The Ñuu now subjugated, its nature shifts. A new ruler, a new religion. Scribes adapt their multilingual and multi-style texts, pulling signs and styles apart to encode indigenous messages Europeanly and colonizer messages natively. Nobles navigate power by pictorializing their new colonial relationship, like this book of accounts. There's money owed. Your people can't mine silver? Well, then they must produce silk, and pay for the books and paper they write on. Parallel pictorial alphabetic dates pass. A silkworm-snacked mulberry leaf grows. Expenses mount. 60% to the church, and this item stands out. The yearly cost of feeding the Spanish vicar is twice as much as the entire local nobility's food. They manage, complain, endure 2 outbreaks. By 1564, a large leaf curls ornately. A long silkworm wraps around Kuya, but the economic demands increase yet again. There are no more dates. Pictography, what once stood for ties and distribution, could now enforce the terms of an uneven pact between indigenous commoners and European colonizers. Their apparent multilingual and schematic obviousness made manuscripts very useful in court for land dispute lawsuits. Readings proved which towns belonged to which families. While they confirmed lineage and asserted new continuity, they strained ties with common people. That map earlier, the map of Chiocatnu, was once crisscrossed by a web of Ñuu, painting and performing pictorial histories. But it became... Well, look, I'm sometimes called out when part of me feels the weight of these linguistic tales. Those who have lived it can anticipate where we're headed. Hundreds of pages into my guidebook to these pictorial manuscripts, I'm faced once again with an eerily familiar wrap-up. Condensing lengthy quotes, the path from then to now, Sounds like usurped lineages, family alliances with outsiders, property, debt, neglect, exacerbated by the modern arrival of the nation and the business. Culture, work, creativity, even their own pictorials and museum exhibits become universals, not particulars. For everyone, just not for them. Ñuu comes to connote erosion and endurance. As one of those others mentioned here, I will take this opportunity to turn up the volume on the Ñuu. Throughout Mexico, symbols and place names and artwork reach through the erosion to reconnect with a pictorial perspective. As Ñuu Dzaui today share burdens of discrimination, migration, and back-breaking days, they find ways to strengthen community ties. And when they organize, they put pictography front and center. My main source is hopeful this will only strengthen bonds, linking those who have journeyed far back to the place where the umbilical cord is buried. On that note, I'll close with a call for support. The first month's ads on this video will go to this organization we've supported before. Pitch in if you can. If you have more to spare, really, their work comes first, but love to have you as my patron. Thank you all for watching. I left my sources document link if you want the nitty-gritty. Any Mixtecos in the audience can share far more. Okay, stick around and subscribe for more about languages, cultures, and people.